That's Peter Onwachukwu, and then we had a caller say that talking about the evidence that the autopsy revealed and how the court based off their sentence on witnesses rather than the autopsy.
Okay. Actually, maybe one can understand where the man is coming from. Because you see the consequence of a death sentence is huge. I consider the fact that, like I did mention, that you have to look at some other issues, and you have to look at the case of the children who actually were one of the witnesses, one of the witnesses relied on, to nail Nwachukwu himself. But, what, those callers and those who felt that way need to understand is that this is the court of the court of first instance, and usually the court of first instance normally gives the maximum punishment, for something like that. And equally too, of course, the man has to appeal. He has 2 more steps to go before it is fully confirmed. And then even if the Supreme Court confirms the death sentence, there is still the fact that there is the president. Of course, since it's in the FCT, the president can exercise the prerogative, because it's not always a slam dunk, when you give a death sentence. And considering the fact that there has been an active campaign against, issuing of death sentences, if you recall, sometimes about how many years ago, when Adams Oshomole as governor, gave death sentence to, was it armed robbers? About 3 of them. He gave death sentences. There was an outrage, a global outrage against it. So, these are just the realities that we have on ground. But all the same, the basis upon which he was convicted was based on serial witnesses to the assault and battery that woman suffered. And of course, violence need not be physical, for those who are saying that the autopsy does not reveal everything. What the most deadly one is the psychological, violence that a woman suffers, And of course, there was one particular aspect of that evidence that was even, when I read about, which was quite touching, in a situation where, sometimes when the man, while the woman was alive, the man will ask the children to join in beating their mother. That is inhuman. That is, I don't know how else to describe it. But you see, what I have tried to do is to give you all the angles of the whole issue, because you see, the issue of death sentence is not how do I put it? It's not what you just sit and see from one angle. And ironically, yesterday I was at an interministerial briefing. State government interministerial briefing, and one of my colleagues, asked the state government, why is it so difficult for governors to just append their signature to death sentences, especially in case of criminal, instances where the court has overruled, So the legal person that, that spoke on behalf of the Attorney General, or is it, I don't know. Yeah, I think the Attorney General of the state, had to take us through all the gamuts, of jurisprudence, the justice system before you take a person to the gallows. You understand? Because you see, the moment you kill that person, there is no more, So at every point, at every stage, you have to be very, very meticulous. Be sure that you are not acting under emotion, but you are acting based on justice. So that's, I'm just trying to explain what that man felt and what the law says. But like I said, that is just the court of first instance. So
what do you think justice would be in this situation?
It's not what I think. It's what the law says. Yeah.
All right, how seriously do we take? My concern is on violence, domestic violence, gender-based violence, and all of this. How seriously do the courts take up these matters, and then to see that victims get justice?
If you look at it very well, I think our court has really, that is one aspect where I can't really fault our court system. I can't really fault our court system, because you see, in most instances where you see cases of gender-based violence, you see court acting decisively on it, especially when it comes to the abuse of one particular member of the family, child abuse. You see the court, really doing something, really acting. You understand? But you see, the fact of the matter is that gender-based violence or domestic violence has always been part of humanity from day one. It has always been part of us. Spousal abuse. And I'm not saying that it's particular to one particular sex, but, it has always been there. And it is an emotive thing, depending on what you hear. If you're a woman, if you're a woman, you hear of gender-based violence, the automatic thing, the reflex is to think that is the woman that is being abused. But in my own view over the years has always been that I think in making call about gender-based violence, we need to be very, very careful. Because we are talking of dynamics that is only known absolutely by those couple, the two of them, and perhaps God. But I'm not. It's just that I like keeping issue of sentiments aside when I do my analysis. But I think that by and large, what actually transpires within a couple is known by them absolutely. So when you bring an somebody to a beat, an arbitrator, he can only look at nuances, look at evidence before him, and how well you are able to marshal your argument. But it's not as if he's an authority on what actually happened. You understand? You see, you need to have lived through the dynamics of such thing to really make a judgment call on it. So that is why most times, gender-based violence is not about one shoot fits all thing. You understand? You don't brush virtually everything. When the moment you see, it definitely is the man or definitely is the woman. So you take each case as they come.
Okay, let me ask this before we move to another conversation this morning. Now, you said he has, this is Mr. Peter Nwachukwu, has 2 more steps to go, Court of Appeal and then Supreme Court. And then let's, for instance, see, the sentence changes and, I don't know what the law says, like you just, it switches from, this absolute sentence where it's, the extreme, right? And because of the children.
Okay.
What does this speak to, other situations of violence and people who are the inflictors of this violence, not the victims now? What does this say to them? Like knowing that there's a possibility to have to appeal and then you don't get capital punishment from doing things like that. No.
You see, the thing about violence is that you don't get encouraged to abuse your partner. No. It's either you are made that way or something triggers it. It's not about I'll be punished. That's why, it's an emotional thing. You understand? It's not.
Okay,
it's
but
not
when you know that you don't, there's like you can appeal and you don't get severe punishment for doing what it is that you're doing.
It's not like stealing money. You understand? Look, you see, to spousal abuse is not the same. The end that you get from it is not like you can spend it like money. So you invest in doing it and getting it, because of there are some gains. No. You understand? It's like it's maybe something wrong with organically wrong with you. That the moment you see a woman you are spoken to in a certain kind of way, that is, I'm talking of the man now, you lash out. You understand? Or it might even be provocation that the woman doesn't even know she's, doing. You understand? There was this psychologist I spoke to once. I think he was on the verge of doing a paper on that is making, giving you what it means when you insult, when a woman insults a man. That is giving a physical equivalent of it, like the punch of Mike Tyson compared to, he was trying to, and the psychologist is a woman. That you see, a lot of people don't understand that, you see, the verbal assault that you give to a man, there is a certain way you hit a man. It's like Mike Tyson punching him. You understand? You see, that these are nuances that if we have to go into the nitty-gritty of it, you discover that this thing is, more complex than we see it. You understand? Yeah, I understand what you are saying, that it might just be like encouraging gender-based violence. But that doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Well,
right.
I guess, again, just to conclude on that, I guess what my colleague is trying to say again is maybe for further understanding, to our listener, like once the capital punishment doesn't take
Yeah.
effect, what happens?
If
You
the
know, it's explicitly is a death sentence,
Okay,
right?
okay.
But what if it's been appealed?
Okay.
Will it translate to life
No,
imprisonment?
I can't make that
No,
call.
so-
It's only the judge can make that call.
Oh, okay.
Are you okay? Even at the Supreme Court, only the judges can make the call.
And also to further.
And even after that,
Okay.
it is the president of since it's FCT that will
That
make
can- okay.
that decide whether to exercise the prerogative of mercy. You understand? But I understand what you're saying, that if at the long run it doesn't get the gallows, it doesn't get the needle or whatever. You understand? Will it not serve as an encouragement for people to do things like that?
Because in my head, I feel like if there's like a leash on it where this is the consequence for my actions, there's a way it would prevent you from doing certain things, even
See,
when there's a provocation.
Let me talk as a man. Let me speak as a man. I can't speak as a woman. You see, when you hit your mate, it diminishes you. Even the man knows. It's a shameful thing to do, even to the person doing it. I don't know. Look, you see, moments when you take, when you talk to some of these people, ask them how they feel after it. You understand? Ask them how they feel after it. You will see, you will rarely hear justification for what they have done.
Okay.
You understand?
All right. Let's move to another conversation. Let's leave this one. 0807-777-9927 is the number to call to be a part of the conversation or make a comment. Let's move to this conversation about Senator Natasha we had on Monday, where she, wrote a satirical letter at Senate President Godswill Akpabio. She was reigniting allegations of sexual harassment that she raised earlier this year. And she described, was mockingly apologizing for what she called the crime of maintaining her dignity and rejecting undue advances. And then she described herself as unafraid, unbought, and unbroken. And then today we have
A former chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association,
Agbakoba, asking Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan to retract her sexual harassment allegations, saying it is false and inconsistent.
Well, Olisa Agbakoba is a highly respected legal luminary, very brilliant, and he has his he caught it in activism. Political activism, especially during the Nadeco June 12th, But if I may say, you see, activism and the issue of harassment are two different things entirely. You understand? Really, I don't understand his motive making that call. I don't know. I'm not sure he's part of Akpabio's legal team or whether he was hired by the National Assembly. But I equally know that, you see, at that level, at the elite level, there is a way they connect. And don't forget that Akpabio himself is a lawyer. So probably, he could be doing that as a favor for a friend or a colleague. But if I have to look at what he's saying, you see, when you say somebody sexually harasses you, I don't think that anybody, any third party, is in the right position to say that it is false or anything without allowing it to go to trial at all. I think that is not justice. That doesn't sound like a lawyer talking. I think that is more of an emotion and ego talking. That is the way I see it. Like I said, Olisa Agbakoba will always be a man I respect greatly. I've met him a couple of times. In fact, I recall that, the first time I was at his chamber to see him, it was to see Barrister Amadi, also a very big lawyer and activist. In his chamber, he was working in his chamber, and he saw me. He said, "Oh, you're a journalist?" I was wearing a T-shirt, and he said, "I know you should be properly dressed." So it tells me that he's the kind of meticulous man. He's very particular about details. So that is why I'm a bit, because I take lessons from any encounter I have of you. I try to get a read on you. So, from that encounter I had with Agbakoba, what it told me was that this is a man that is very particular about appearances. So appearances are detail. So what he's saying now, is it about appearances, what it appears like? When a woman accuses the Senate president and the Senate of, that kind of intimidation and sexual harassment and things like that, or is it about detail? And of course, when you look at what he said too, he said there are inconsistencies and things like that. What inconsistencies when it hasn't been put before a panel? The woman has been very consistent, and I don't see her changing her story. Rather than, the Senate president, answering the questions that are being raised. What we see is people attacking the person, the person of Natasha. You understand? And that tells me, you see, when you don't address an issue, you attack the person that is that is bringing the issue to the fore. It tells me that you have a lot to hide. That has always been my experience with, things like that. And honestly, I think, they either have a choice. They have just one choice. They have a choice. Either to allow this thing to, go to trial, or they leave the suspension and let her continue her work.
The number to join the conversation is 0807 777 0807 777 9927. Let's move ahead. Let's take this call and take on another story. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, this is Mr. Davis calling from Sham.
Mr. David, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my regards to Mr. Nicholas.
Good morning, please.
You see, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
I am not a lawyer. You are not a lawyer. But I believe you are a little bit into law more than I do. Now, if I am correct in this language, are we using, in the English law in which we use in this country, is this evidence that matters or autopsy? Because I believe that in the advanced world, they rely so much on autopsy.
Okay.
That is my question on that.
Okay.
So on the issue of Natasha, you see, the book I use as my own spiritual guide, that is the Bible. The Bible says, don't answer a fool in a foolish way. I'm very sorry for using the language. I'm not calling Natasha a fool. You see, when I've heard you, if you continue to react or talking about that issue, then it's not a leader. Because there is a saying that Mahatma Gandhi, that a leader's word is like a scripture, that once you speak it out, it remains that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Davids.
Well,
let's pick it up from the first question.
Yeah, the first question.
Evidence or autopsy?
Mr. Davis, I know that we have what you call the Evidential Act. Under that act, it specifies what you can call evidence. And one of them, like you said, is autopsy. That is science-based. And of course, witnesses, eyewitness accounts. You understand? So in this case, since there was multiple eyewitnesses account attesting to the multiple assault in battery of the woman, then that suffices. You understand? So, I understand that, you're saying that since autopsy is not there, don't forget that even those same, it was only recently that anything that has to do with internet printing and things that became evidence in Nigeria.
Sorry,
you understand?
Mr. Bachu. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name and where are you calling from, please?
My name is Toy. I'm calling from Taiwan.
All right,
Mr.
Tori.
Please go ahead.
All right, quickly on, still on Natasha. You see, the Senate president has to complain. He is heading an institution that needs a lot of respect. And if we want to uphold the sanctity of that institution, it's either they have a house of court settlement and let this whole issue die down. The more they continue this way, the more bad it is for the image of the Senate and the image of the country. But unfortunately, I'm sorry to say this, they don't care about the image of the country. All they care about is their self-adulation and ego. And again, you see, not until Nigerian men start seeing the women folk, start treating them with some kind of respect. It's unfortunate that the society we are in, men will just sit down and make claims about women without blinking an eye. Over the weekend, I was sitting with some friends and we are having a discussion on this same issue. I cannot imagine the kind of statements I hear from friends that are supposed to be educated.
But I understand it is the society we find ourselves in. So not until we have a rethink and we have a total reorientation of the way and manner we look at the women folk, women like Natasha will continue to suffer in the hands of men like Senate President Akpabio. Good morning.
I absolutely agree with you.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah. But see, we were talking about Nwachukwu. Even with the weight of witness accounts and things like that, why is it difficult for some people to believe that you need an autopsy to establish that she was assaulted? When the sister, the children, they have said, that is...
Including neighbors.
Including neighbors. You understand? You see, I don't know. You see, the case of Nwachukwu is kind of related to that of Natasha. This is how we dismiss assault on women on a daily basis because of what we call patriarchy. For those who are familiar with feminism, there's what we call patriarchy, over dominance by the men folk. You see, the only thing unless maybe you see that woman dead, that is when you know there has been assault.
All right, Nicholas, let's take another call. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody in the studio.
Good morning to you. What is your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Mr. Brown, calling from Oboko.
All right.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Thank you so very much.
I always listen to you people. I'm just a learner. But I want to ask for one favor.
Okay.
I just want to ask for a favor.
Okay.
Because I do learn on your program every day. This is the program. They are doing it for 30 minutes. Can it be extended for 1 hour? So that you will have enough time to analyze it. Wait.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, Mr. Brown.
All the way from Anambra
Wow,
State.
can you imagine?
All right. Thank you.
Very
a lot.
duly
Thank you
noted,
so
Mr.
much.
Brown. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wow, that's something. Well, like we were saying, yeah, it's the assault battery on women. It's so pervasive. Don't forget, there was
Sorry
this.
to bother you, Nicholas. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Tai Aliyu. And I'm calling from Zango.
All right, Taya Liu from Zongo, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, I just want to say that we're in a society whereby people feel that relationships have to be an excellent union. There's no relationship that doesn't have its up and down. The case of the Nwachukwu is a test to people who are in abusive relationships to always seek help and let people know. If the woman ab initio had raised an alarm and let people know that she was in an abusive relationship, I think what happened to her eventually wouldn't have happened to her. So it's important for people to seek help, to cry out, but we're in a society whereby people feel that you are in a relationship and there are problems. If you say, people will laugh or make mockery of you. No. So I think it's important for people to seek help as soon as possible when you start seeing those red flags, so that at the end of the day, we don't have the kind of thing that happened. I think it's very important. Thank you so very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you, Femtai. Just before you respond, I just need to ask this. There are lots of women in abusive relationships across the country. And so we have a few men also in abusive relationships.
Why did you say few? Do you have the statistics?
No, I don't. I apologize. For that. And some men in,
Men
in abusive
exactly.
relationships as well. I want to ask you, how can we encourage, people to speak out, and then how much of involvement do religious organizations or NGOs have to get involved in resolving issues or amplifying the conversation?
Unfortunately, the religious institutions are the biggest culprit in allowing things like that to happen. You go to, they tell you this, for better, for worse thing, on the one hand, that you can, no matter what, it's your cross, you have to bear it, things like that, and knowing full well that this issue of forgiving and forgetting and things like that. I'm not saying that people should hold grudges. You understand? But you see, if a woman or a man that is in an abusive relationship comes to you, you must understand first and foremost that you are not in his shoes. You don't know his threshold for pain, his or her threshold for pain. You understand? Then, of course, you have to learn to look out for the signs that this woman's life is in danger or the man's life is in danger. You understand? So when you see things like that, then, of course, you must be forceful about, getting the partner to see what he's doing, that if anything happens, that there will be consequences. Then, of course, close relatives too, like fathers, mothers, this idea of, once you are married, don't come back to this house again. No? Yes, you can say that. But you see, the moment there are evidence of assault, I don't think it is out of place for mothers and fathers to say things, to really speak out. Speak to, the partner who is involved in that abuse. Exactly. Get to know, not make allegations, but get to understand that. See, this is what I'm seeing in my son, in my daughter. What exactly is open? I'm concerned. I'm not placing any blame on you, but can you make me understand what is going on, please? You understand? So, but when you see recalcitrance, of course, as a parent, you can cry out that, look, if anything happens to my kid, my child, I will go to places to ensure that there is justice. You understand? There is nothing wrong with that. But by and large, I think that the people involved themselves has to do, an introspection, weigh risk, weigh the, risk they are taking. When you are in an abusive relationship, don't keep thinking that it's going to change, because people don't change.
Except you want to.
Except you want to manage those instincts that make you abusive.
All right, Nicholas, our time is spent. Thank you so very much for your contribution this morning. The views expressed is not in any way the position of Flow FM. I almost say a very big thank you to Mr. Brown, all the way from Anambra State, who called and made a request. Well, it will be considered. Thank you so very much. My name is Dayo Adeyemi.
And I'm Danielle Shitta-Bey. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Join us tomorrow as well from 8 a.m.
You already know we keep it fun, fresh, and real. Mid-mornings with us, you won't want to miss it.
We bring the energy, the laughs, and of course the tunes that gets you through the day.
Afternoon on Flow FM is where the culture lives. Music, entertainment, and all the gist that you need.
And if it's trending, you already know we're talking about it.
Stay locked in, Lauren. It's Flow FM, baby.
The night's young, the vibes are right, and we are flowing past midnight. You ready to chill? Let's go.
Listen anytime, anywhere. Stream us live, call us, send us a WhatsApp message. We're just a tap away. Flow